had been planning this yard sale for 3 weeks. After her mom passed away 2 months ago, she'd been slowly going through the house deciding what to keep and what to let go. It wasn't easy. Every item held a memory, but she couldn't keep everything, and she knew her mom would have wanted these things to go to people who'd actually use them. She'd done everything by the book. The HOA rules clearly stated that residents could hold 2 yard sales per year, as long as they gave 48 hours notice through the online portal. Amy had submitted her request on Thursday morning for a Saturday sale. She even got a confirmation email that said approved right there in green letters. She'd printed it out just in case. Friday night, she'd stayed up late pricing everything. Her mom's vintage kitchen table with the wobbly leg, boxes of books that smelled like her childhood, garden tools that were still in perfect condition, a collection of ceramic figurines her mom had loved, some clothes that were too nice to donate. Nothing expensive, really. Most things were marked between $2 and $10. She just wanted them to find good homes. Saturday morning came with perfect weather, sunny but not too hot. Amy dragged tables from the garage and set everything up in the driveway. By 8:30, she had everything arranged nicely. She'd even made little signs with prices and a big banner that said, "Estate sale, all proceeds to Children's Hospital." Her mom had always supported that hospital, and Amy worked there as a nurse. It felt right. The first customers showed up around 9, a young couple looking for furniture for their first apartment, an elderly man who got excited about the old books, a mom with 2 kids who carefully looked through the toy section Amy had set up. It was actually kind of nice watching people get excited about finding treasures. Then, around 10:15, Amy noticed her across the street, Patricia Wells, the HOA president. Everyone in the neighborhood knew Patricia. She'd lived there for almost 20 years and had been running the HOA for the last 5. Some people said she was dedicated. Others had different words for her. Amy had only dealt with her once before, when she'd gotten a notice about her mailbox needing a fresh coat of paint. That had been fine. Amy had repainted it the next weekend. But Patricia was standing on her front lawn now, hands on her hips, staring at Amy's driveway. She had her phone out. Even from across the street, Amy could tell she was taking pictures. Amy tried to ignore it. She helped a teenager find some video games, made change for a 20, and chatted with a neighbor about the weather. But she kept seeing Patricia in her peripheral vision, just standing there watching. Then Patricia started walking over. She moved with purpose, her phone still raised like she was filming everything. She was wearing a crisp white polo shirt with HOA president embroidered on it in navy blue. Amy had never seen anyone actually wear an HOA shirt before. "Excuse me," Patricia called out while she was still 10 feet away. Her voice was loud enough that several customers turned to look. "Excuse me, this is highly inappropriate." Amy felt her stomach drop. "I'm sorry, is there a problem?" Patricia stopped right at the edge of the driveway, still filming with her phone. "A problem?" "Yes, there's definitely a problem. This," she gestured at the tables with her free hand, "is not what we allow in this neighborhood." "I submitted a request for a yard sale," Amy said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I got approval. I can show you the email." "This is not a yard sale," Patricia said firmly. "This is clearly a commercial operation. Look at all of this stuff. You have furniture, electronics, clothes, household goods. This looks like a store." A few customers had stopped shopping and were watching now. Amy felt her face getting hot. "It's an estate sale. My mom passed away and I'm selling some of her things. Everything here came from her house." Patricia's expression didn't soften at all. "I'm very sorry for your loss, but that doesn't change the rules. And I see some very valuable-looking items here. That credenza alone is probably worth several $100s. You're running an unauthorized business operation out of a residential property." "I'm not running a business," Amy said, her voice rising slightly despite herself. "I'm having a yard sale, which is allowed. I have the approval right here." She grabbed the printed email from the table where she'd left it and held it out. Patricia barely glanced at it. That approval was for a standard yard sale. "Not this. This is excessive. And look at your sign. You're advertising. That's commercial activity." "I'm not advertising. I just wanted people to know where the money was going," Amy tried to explain. She could feel tears starting to form and hated herself for it. She was a nurse. She dealt with difficult people every day at work. But this felt different, more personal. "I'm calling an emergency HOA board meeting about this," Patricia announced, still filming. As of right now, I'm issuing you a notice that you're in violation of community standards. You need to pack all of this up immediately. You can't do that, Amy said. I followed all the rules. I absolutely can do that, Patricia replied. I'm the HOA president, and I have the authority to shut down any activity that violates our community standards. You have until the end of the day to clear all of this out, or you'll be facing daily fines. One of the customers, an older woman who'd been looking at some kitchen items, spoke up.
Oh, for heaven's sake, Patricia.
It's just a yard sale. I've lived here 12 years and we've all had yard sales. Patricia turned to her. Mrs. Johnson, I appreciate your input, but this is HOA business. And your yard sale last year had maybe 20 items. This is completely different. My mom had a lot of stuff, Amy said quietly. That's all this is. I don't believe you acquired all of these items legitimately, Patricia said, and Amy felt like she'd been slapped. I think you're using your mother's death as a cover to run a business selling goods you've obtained from who knows where. I want documentation for every item here. Receipts, proof of ownership, everything. You can't be serious, Amy said. I'm completely serious. I'll be sending you a formal letter outlining all of this. The daily fine for unauthorized commercial activity is $200 per day. That starts tomorrow if you don't clear out today. Patricia finally lowered her phone. I take protecting our property values very seriously. People like you who think the rules don't apply to them are exactly why we need a strong HOA. Before Amy could respond, Patricia turned and walked back across the street. A few of the customers looked at Amy sympathetically. Mrs. Johnson patted her arm. Don't worry about her, honey. She's always been a bit much. But Amy was worried. $200 a day? She couldn't afford that. She'd already spent so much on her mom's medical bills and the funeral. This was supposed to help, not make things worse. The young couple who'd been looking at furniture quietly left without buying anything. A few other people followed. Within 20 minutes, the cheerful morning atmosphere had completely evaporated. Amy stood there among her mother's belongings, feeling more alone than she had since the funeral. She looked at the banner about the children's hospital. She thought about her mom, who'd always taught her to follow the rules and do the right thing. She'd done both. And somehow she was still the bad guy Amy didn't pack up, not yet. She had until the end of the day, and she wasn't going to let Patricia intimidate her without at least trying to finish what she'd started. But as she watched Patricia's front door close across the street, she had a sinking feeling that this was only the beginning. Amy managed to finish the yard sale that Saturday. She didn't make as much as she'd hoped because so many people had left after Patricia's scene, but she sold enough to make a decent donation to the hospital. By 6 o'clock, she'd packed up what was left and taken it to a donation center. She was exhausted, emotionally drained, but at least it was over. Or so she thought. Monday morning, before she even left for her shift at the hospital, there was an envelope in her mailbox. Official HOA letterhead. Her hands actually shook a little as she opened it. It was a formal violation notice. Patricia had written up a detailed complaint about the yard sale, calling it an unauthorized commercial enterprise and a threat to neighborhood aesthetics and property values. At the bottom, in bold letters, it said she had 7 days to respond in writing or face fines. Amy spent her lunch break that day typing up a response. She explained again about her mom. She attached a copy of the approval email. She even included a photo of her mom's death certificate, which felt horrible, like she had to prove her grief was real. She dropped it in Patricia's mailbox that evening. The next morning, there was another envelope. This one was a violation for her trash can. Apparently, on Monday morning, her trash can had been visible from the street for 23 minutes after the truck came by. The rule was that cans had to be brought in within 2 hours of pickup, but Patricia's note said that was unnecessarily long and showed disregard for community appearance. Amy had been at work. She'd brought the can in as soon as she got home at 4 in the afternoon. 23 minutes. Patricia must have been watching, timing it. Wednesday brought another notice. Her garden hose wasn't completely rolled up. A small loop of it was visible near her spigot. Another violation. Thursday, it was a package. Amy had ordered some groceries online and they'd been delivered around 10 in the morning. She didn't get home until 3. Patricia sent a violation notice saying, packages left on porches for extended periods were unsightly and invited theft, which reflected poorly on the neighborhood. Amy started to feel like she was going crazy. She'd lived in this house for 6 years, ever since her mom had gotten sick and needed help. She'd never had a single violation before Saturday. Now she was getting them daily. Friday evening, she found out it was worse than she thought. Her neighbor, Tom, came over while she was checking her mail. Tom was in his 70s, had lived on the street for 30 years, and mostly kept to himself. "Hey, Amy," he said, looking uncomfortable. "I wanted to give you a heads up. Patricia's been sending emails." "What kind of emails?" Amy asked, though she had a sinking feeling she already knew. Tom pulled out his phone and showed her. The subject line read, "Protecting our property values. Important community update." Patricia had sent it to the entire HOA mailing list. Amy read it with growing horror. Patricia didn't mention her by name, but it was obvious who she was talking about. A resident has recently been operating what appears to be an unlicensed business from their home, it started. It went on to talk about how this could affect everyone's property values, how it set a dangerous precedent, and how the HOA board needed to take strong action. Patricia had included photos from the yard sale, carefully angled to make it look as crowded and commercial as possible. She'd also added a line about how some residents seem to think the rules don't apply to them, and how this lack of respect for our community standards couldn't be tolerated. "I'm sorry," Tom said. "I know what you were doing. Your mom was a good woman. This is ridiculous." "Thanks, Tom," Amy managed to say. She felt sick. The emails kept coming over the weekend. Patricia sent 3 more, each one ramping up the rhetoric. She started a thread called Illegal Business Operations and suggested that residents who were concerned should contact the county zoning office. By Monday, Amy's phone was buzzing with texts. Some neighbors were supportive, telling her to ignore Patricia, that everyone knew she was being unreasonable. But others were less friendly. Someone she barely knew sent her a message saying her business activities were making the whole street look bad. Another neighbor asked if she was planning to turn this into a regular thing, because they'd worked hard to maintain the neighborhood's reputation. Amy tried to explain to everyone who asked. It was just a yard sale. One time, she'd followed all the rules, but she could feel the neighborhood splitting into camps, and she hated it. She'd never wanted drama. She just wanted to honor her mom's memory and help some kids at the hospital. Tuesday morning brought the worst news yet. Amy found an official-looking envelope in her mail, not from the HOA this time, from the county. Her hands went numb as she read it. Patricia had filed a formal complaint with the county zoning office, claiming Amy was operating a business without proper licensing. The letter said she was required to appear at a hearing in 3 weeks to address the complaint. If they found against her, there could be fines. Real fines from the county, not just HOA penalties. Amy had to sit down on her front steps. She felt like she couldn't breathe. A county hearing? Over a yard sale? This was insane. She called in sick to work that day for the first time in 2 years. She just couldn't face it. She sat in her mom's house, surrounded by the things she'd kept, and cried. It felt like everything was falling apart. That afternoon, she did something she'd been avoiding. She called her Aunt Diane, her mom's sister, who lived 2 hours away. Diane was a retired school principal, tough as nails, and didn't put up with nonsense from anyone. "Tell me everything," Diane said after Amy explained the situation. Amy did. All of it. The yard sale, Patricia's accusations, the daily violations, the emails, and now the county complaint. There was a long pause. Then Diane said, "This woman is harassing you." "I don't know what to do," Amy admitted. "I can't afford a lawyer. I can't afford county fines. And I definitely can't afford $200 a day from the HOA. Has she actually started charging you the daily fines?" Diane asked. "Not yet. But she keeps threatening to." "Listen to me," Diane said firmly. "You need legal help. I don't care what it costs. I'll help you pay for it if I have to. This isn't about a yard sale anymore. This woman is trying to run you out of your home." "That's crazy," Amy said. But even as she said it, she wondered if it was true. Patricia's anger seemed so personal, so intense. Over a yard sale? "I'm going to make some calls," Diane said. "I know a lawyer who handles this kind of stuff. Just hang tight, okay? Don't respond to any more of her letters without talking to someone first." After they hung up, Amy walked through the house. Her mom's house. The house where she'd grown up. Where her mom had taught her to ride a bike in the driveway, where they'd spent her mom's last months together. The house that was supposed to be her home. She thought about Patricia's emails, about the phrase, "Some residents think the rules don't apply to them." The irony was that Amy had always followed the rules. She was the person who always used her turn signal, who never parked in handicapped spots, who returned shopping carts to the corral even when it was raining. She'd spent her entire career helping sick kids, showing up for every shift, following every protocol, and somehow she was the bad guy. That night, Amy couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the hearing, about having to defend herself to county officials, about Patricia's accusations. She thought about her mom, about what she would say if she were here. Her mom had always been gentle, kind, the type who saw the best in everyone. But she'd also been strong. She'd raised Amy alone after her dad left when Amy was 5. She'd worked 2 jobs to keep them afloat. She'd never backed down when something was important. Around midnight, Amy made a decision. She wasn't going to run. She wasn't going to apologize for doing nothing wrong. And she wasn't going to let Patricia Wells drive her out of her home. But she also knew she couldn't fight this alone. Tomorrow she'd call Diane's lawyer friend. She'd start building her case. She'd find out exactly what Patricia was so angry about. Because this wasn't normal. People didn't launch crusades over a single yard sale. There had to be more to it. And Amy was going to find out what Diane's lawyer friend was named Robert Chen. He was in his 50s, had been practicing for 25 years, and specialized in HOA disputes. When Amy met him at his office on Wednesday afternoon, she was nervous. She'd never hired a lawyer before. "Tell me everything," Robert said, pulling out a notepad.
Start from the beginning. Amy told him the whole story.
The yard sale, Patricia's confrontation, the daily violations, the emails, the county complaint. She showed him every piece of paper, every email, every text message. It took almost an hour. Robert listened without interrupting. When she finished, he leaned back in his chair and smiled slightly. "You know what I love about HOA cases? They're almost always about something else." "What do you mean?" Amy asked. "This level of anger, this persistence over a simple yard sale that followed all the rules? There's something deeper here. People don't usually go this hard unless it's personal." He tapped his pen on the notepad. "Give me a few days. I'm going to do some digging." "What kind of digging?" "Public records. HOA meeting minutes. Complaint histories. I want to know everything about Patricia Wells and her time as HOA president." He looked at Amy seriously. "This is going to cost money. I'm not cheap. But your aunt already talked to me and she's helping with the retainer. Are you okay with that?" Amy felt embarrassed accepting money from Diane. But she didn't have a choice. "Yes, thank you." "One more thing," Robert said. "Don't respond to any more of Patricia's communications. Don't engage with her at all. If she approaches you, be polite but brief. Everything goes through me now." The next few days were strange. Amy went to work, came home, and waited. Patricia sent 2 more violation notices. One about a small weed in the flower bed and another about Amy's car being parked too close to the property line. Amy forwarded them to Robert without responding. The neighborhood email chain had gotten worse. Patricia was sending daily updates now, talking about the importance of enforcement and protecting our investment. Some residents were pushing back, saying she was being excessive. Others were supporting her. The whole street felt tense. Friday afternoon, Robert called. "Can you come to my office?" "I found some things." Amy left work early and drove straight there. Robert had papers spread across his desk. "Okay," he said. "Let me show you what I found." First, Patricia Wells has been HOA president for 5 years. In that time, she's filed an average of 2 complaints per month. That's a lot, but not crazy for an HOA president. However, he pulled out a highlighted document. In the last 2 years, that number jumped to almost 4 complaints per month. 47 total violations filed against residents in just 24 months. "That seems like a lot," Amy said. "It is. But here's the interesting part. Those 47 complaints? They targeted exactly 12 different households. She's not spreading it around evenly. She's focusing on specific people." He showed her a list of addresses. "Do any of these look familiar?" Amy scanned the list. She recognized most of them. "Yeah, these are all on my street or the next one over." "Right, and look at this." Robert pulled out another paper. 3 of those families moved away in the last 2 years. I talked to 2 of them on the phone. Both said they left specifically because Patricia made their lives miserable. One family got 23 violation notices in 4 months. Amy felt a chill. So she's done this before. Multiple times. But it gets better. Robert pulled up something on his computer and turned the screen toward Amy. I also checked Patricia's own compliance record. Guess what? In the last 3 years, she's violated HOA rules at least 6 times. Everything from unauthorized fence modifications to having her trash cans out on the wrong day, to noise complaints from a party she threw. So she breaks the rules too? Constantly. But when it's her, the board looks the other way. When it's someone she doesn't like, she comes down hard. Robert leaned forward. But here's where it gets really interesting. I went back through property records for your house. Who owned it before your mom? Nobody. My mom bought it new when they built the development. That was like 25 years ago. Right. But did you know someone else put in an offer on that same lot? Amy felt her stomach drop. Who? Patricia Wells. Robert pulled out a photocopy of old real estate documents. Back in 2000, when this neighborhood was being developed, Patricia put in an offer on your exact lot. Your mom's offer was higher. Your mom got the house, the room felt like it was spinning. Are you serious? Completely. Your lot has the best view in the neighborhood. It backs up to the community park, gets great sunlight, and is on a corner. Patricia wanted it. Your mom outbid her. Patricia ended up with the house across the street instead. That was 25 years ago, Amy said. She's been mad about that for 25 years? Robert shrugged. People hold grudges over strange things, and it's not just speculation. I found something else. He pulled out printed pages of old neighborhood Facebook posts. Look at this. 3 years ago, at a community barbecue, several people posted photos. In one of them, you can see Patricia talking to a group of neighbors. Someone tagged it with a caption, "Patricia still complaining about the lot that got away." Amy stared at the post. It was clearly meant as a joke, but there was Patricia in the photo gesturing toward Amy's house with an annoyed expression. Here's another one, Robert said, from a neighborhood garage sale 2 years ago. Someone commented on the post saying, "Patricia keeps walking by the Martinez house and sighing. Girl needs to let it go." "This is crazy," Amy whispered. "It's obsessive," Robert corrected. "And it explains a lot. Your mom gets sick, you move in to help her. Patricia watches you take care of the house she thinks should have been hers. Your mom passes away and now you're still there, in the house Patricia has wanted for 25 years. The yard sale was just an excuse," Amy said slowly. "Exactly. She saw an opportunity to come after you and she took it. The yard sale gave her an opening and she's been escalating ever since." Robert closed his laptop. "The question is, what do you want to do about it?" "What can I do?" "Well, we can fight the county complaint. That's easy. You followed all the rules and I can prove it. But that doesn't stop Patricia from making your life miserable through the HOA." He paused. "Or we can go bigger. We can formally challenge her position as HOA president, file a complaint with the board about harassment and abuse of power, maybe even pursue a personal lawsuit for harassment and emotional distress." Amy felt overwhelmed. "I don't want to sue anyone. I just want to live in my house in peace, I understand. But sometimes the only way to stop a bully is to hit back hard enough that they think twice." Robert's voice was gentle. "You don't have to decide now. Let's start with the county hearing. We'll shut that down first. Then we can figure out next steps." That evening, Amy sat in her mom's favorite chair and tried to process everything. 25 years. Patricia had been angry about this house for 25 years. It seemed impossible, but the evidence was right there. She thought about all the times she'd seen Patricia over the years, always watching the house, always seeming irritated. Amy had thought she was just a grumpy neighbor. She'd never imagined it went deeper than that. Her phone buzzed. It was Tom, her neighbor. "Hey, weird question. Did Patricia ever try to buy your mom's house?" Amy called him instead of texting back. "How did you know that?" "I was thinking about it," Tom said. "I've lived here a long time. I remember when they were building this neighborhood. Patricia and her husband at the time were so excited about your lot. Then your mom got it instead. Patricia was really upset. Her husband told mine that she cried about it. Tom, that was 25 years ago, I know. But Patricia's the type who holds on to things. Her husband left her about 5 years ago, right around when she became HOA president. After that, she seemed to get more and more bitter. I think maybe going after people's houses makes her feel powerful or something." After they hung up, Amy walked through the house. Her mom's house. The house where she'd grown up, where she'd learned to cook in that kitchen, where she'd done homework at the dining room table, where she'd held her mom's hand during those final weeks. Patricia had wanted this house for 25 years. And now she wanted Amy gone, but Amy wasn't going anywhere. Her mom had fought to keep this house, had raised her daughter here, had lived her whole life here. Amy wasn't about to let some bitter woman with a decades-old grudge take that away. Monday morning, Robert called with the court date confirmed. 2 weeks. "We're going to win this," he said confidently. "The county complaint is baseless. But Amy, you should prepare yourself. Once we beat this, Patricia might escalate further." "Let her try," Amy said, surprising herself with how firm she sounded. "I'm done being scared." She meant it. For the first time since this whole mess started, Amy felt something other than anxiety. She felt angry. Not the helpless, frustrated kind of angry. The focused, determined kind. Patricia Wells had been running people out of their homes for years. She'd been abusing her power, breaking rules while enforcing them on others and making people miserable, all because of a house she didn't get a quarter century ago. Well, Amy wasn't going anywhere, and it was time Patricia learned that. The 2 weeks before the county hearing crawled by, Amy tried to focus on work, on her patients at the hospital, on anything except the upcoming confrontation. But it was always there in the back of her mind. Patricia didn't let up. She sent 3 more violation notices during those 2 weeks. One was for Amy's doormat being worn and unsightly. Another was for a single dandelion in the lawn. The third was for Amy's recycling bin having the lid slightly open on pickup day. Robert told Amy to ignore them all. "She's trying to rattle you before the hearing," he said. "Don't give her the satisfaction." The night before the hearing, Amy couldn't eat dinner. She kept going over everything in her mind. What if the county sided with Patricia? What if they believed she really had been running a business? What if she ended up with massive fines she couldn't pay? Diane called around 8. "You're going to be fine," she said firmly. "You didn't do anything wrong. Remember that, I know. I just hate confrontation. Well, tomorrow you're going to have to get comfortable with it. This woman has been bullying you for weeks. It's time to stand up." The hearing was scheduled for 10 in the morning at the county municipal building. Amy wore her nicest work clothes and met Robert in the parking lot. He had a briefcase full of documents. "Ready?" he asked. "No," Amy admitted. "But let's do it anyway." The hearing room was smaller than Amy expected. Just a plain office with a long table where 3 county officials sat. Patricia was already there, sitting on one side of the room with her own briefcase. She was wearing a business suit and had her hair pulled back tightly. She looked confident, prepared. Amy's stomach churned. The woman in the middle of the table, who introduced herself as County Administrator Helen Brooks, called the hearing to order. "This is a complaint filed by Patricia Wells regarding alleged unlicensed business operations at 247 Maple Street. Ms. Wells, you filed the complaint. Please present your case." Patricia stood up smoothly. She'd clearly prepared a whole presentation. She pulled out printed photos of Amy's yard sale and spread them on the table. As you can see from these images, this was clearly not a simple garage sale. The sheer volume of items, the professional presentation, and the advertising all indicate commercial activity. She went through each photo, pointing out things she thought proved her case. The multiple tables, the variety of items, the price tags, the banner about the children's hospital. This resident has been using her property for commercial purposes without proper licensing or permits. This violates county zoning ordinances and sets a dangerous precedent. Patricia talked for almost 15 minutes. She made it sound like Amy was running some kind of major operation. She used words like systematic, organized, and ongoing threat to residential integrity. When Patricia finally sat down, Amy felt sick. It sounded bad even though she knew it wasn't true. Helen looked at Robert. "Mr. Chen, you're representing Ms. Rivera?" Robert stood up calmly. "I am. And I'd like to start by pointing out that everything Ms. Wells just described is completely legal, under county ordinances and HOA regulations." He pulled out his own documents. "First, here's the county ordinance regarding garage and yard sales. Residents are permitted to hold sales on their own property without licensing, provided they occur no more than twice per year and last no more than 3 days. Ms. Rivera's sale was a single day. 1 day. That's well within the legal limit." He showed them Amy's HOA request and the approval email. Second, Ms. Rivera followed all HOA procedures. She submitted her request 48 hours in advance as required. She received written approval. Everything was by the book. Robert pulled out more papers. Third, regarding the volume of items. Ms. Rivera's mother, Rosa Rivera, passed away 2 months before this sale. Rosa had lived in that house for 25 years. The items being sold were from her estate. I have the death certificate here, along with documentation showing Rosa's ownership of the property and her possessions. Amy saw Patricia's jaw tighten. Now, Robert continued, his voice getting firmer. Let's talk about why we're really here. Ms. Wells has filed 47 violation notices against neighborhood residents in the past 2 years. That's an average of 2 per month. She has targeted specific households repeatedly, including Ms. Rivera, who has received 9 violations in 3 weeks. He laid out a timeline on the table. Ms. Wells has filed complaints about Ms. Rivera's trash can, her garden hose, her doormat, a dandelion in her yard, and a package on her porch. This isn't about zoning violations. This is harassment. Patricia stood up. That's not relevant to this hearing. It's absolutely relevant, Robert shot back, because it establishes a pattern of bad faith complaints. Ms. Wells didn't file this county complaint because she genuinely believed zoning laws were being violated. She filed it to intimidate and harass a resident she has personal issues with. That's absurd, Patricia said, her voice rising. I don't have personal issues with anyone. I'm simply enforcing community standards. Really? Robert pulled out the property records. Is that why you've held a grudge for 25 years about Ms. Rivera's house? Patricia's face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. In the year 2000, you put in an offer on the lot where Ms. Rivera's house now stands. Rosa Rivera outbid you. You didn't get the property you wanted, and you've resented it ever since. That's ridiculous, Patricia said, but her voice wavered. That was decades ago. And yet multiple neighbors have reported over the years that you frequently complain about the lot that got away, that you often stare at Ms. Rivera's house with visible frustration, that you've made comments about how that house should have been yours. Robert laid out the Facebook posts and neighbor statements. This isn't about zoning. This isn't about community standards. This is about a personal vendetta against a woman whose only crime was having a mother who outbid you for a house a quarter-century ago. The room was silent for a moment. Amy could see the 3 county officials looking at the documents, then at Patricia, then back at the documents. Helen cleared her throat. Ms. Wells, is this true? Did you attempt to purchase that property in 2000? Patricia's hands were shaking slightly. I looked at many properties when I was house hunting. I don't remember every single one. The records show you made a formal offer, Robert said, and it was rejected in favor of Rosa Rivera's higher bid. Patricia sat down abruptly. Her confident demeanor had cracked. Even if that's true, it doesn't change the fact that the yard sale was excessive. The yard sale followed every rule, Robert said firmly. County ordinance, HOA regulations, everything. You know it did. That's why you didn't file this complaint based on the actual zoning rules. You filed it based on your personal opinion that it looked too commercial. But your opinion doesn't override the law. Helen looked at her fellow officials, and they had a quiet conversation. Then she looked at Patricia. Ms. Wells, based on the evidence presented here today, Ms. Rivera's yard sale was fully compliant with all county ordinances. This complaint is dismissed. Patricia's face turned red. But furthermore, Helen continued, filing complaints in bad faith is a serious matter. We've noted the pattern Mr. Chen has documented. If you file another baseless complaint with this office, there will be consequences. Do you understand? Patricia grabbed her briefcase. This is outrageous. I was trying to protect my neighborhood. By harassing your neighbors? Helen's voice was cold. I suggest you reconsider how you're using your position as HOA president. This hearing is concluded. Patricia stormed out without another word. Amy just sat there trying to process what had happened. Robert packed up his papers. Well, that went better than expected. Is it really over? Amy asked. The county complaint is over. You won't face any fines or penalties from them. He paused. But Patricia is still HOA president. And now she's humiliated and angry. This might not be finished yet. Outside in the parking lot, Amy felt like she could finally breathe. The county complaint had been terrifying, and now it was gone. But Robert was right. Patricia was still in power at the HOA. That afternoon, Robert sent a formal letter to the HOA board. It outlined everything. Patricia's harassment, her abuse of power, her pattern of targeting specific residents, and her personal vendetta against Amy. The letter demanded Patricia's resignation and a formal apology. If the board didn't take action, Amy would pursue a civil lawsuit for harassment and intentional infliction of emotional distress. "It's a strong letter," Robert told Amy over the phone. "The board has to take this seriously. You just beat Patricia at a county hearing. They know you're not backing down. What if they don't care?" Amy asked. "What if they just let her keep doing this? Then we sue, and we'll win. But I think they'll care. Nobody wants the liability of an HOA president who's actively harassing residents. It's a lawsuit waiting to happen, and they know it." That night, Amy got a text from Tom. "Just heard about the hearing. The whole neighborhood's talking about it. Patricia apparently came home and slammed her door so hard her wreath fell off." Amy couldn't help but smile a little. For the first time in weeks, she felt like maybe, just maybe, things were going to be okay. But she also knew Robert was right. Patricia wasn't the type to just accept defeat. The real question was what she'd do next. The HOA board called an emergency meeting for the following Thursday evening. Robert had sent them his letter on Monday, and by Tuesday morning, Amy heard from 3 different neighbors that the board members had been calling around, asking questions about Patricia's behavior. Amy was nervous about attending the meeting. Robert said she didn't have to go, that he could represent her. But she wanted to be there. She wanted to face this head on. The meeting was held at the community center, a small building near the park. When Amy arrived with Robert at 7 o'clock, the parking lot was almost full. Word had spread. The whole neighborhood seemed to know something big was happening. Inside, at least 40 people had shown up. Way more than the usual 5 or 6 who attended regular HOA meetings. Amy saw Tom, who gave her an encouraging nod. She saw Mrs. Johnson from the yard sale. She saw neighbors she barely knew, all whispering and waiting. Patricia sat in the front row, stiff and silent. She didn't look at Amy. The board president, an older man named Frank who'd lived in the neighborhood forever, called the meeting to order. He looked uncomfortable. "Thank you all for coming. We're here to discuss some concerns that have been raised about HOA management and resident treatment." He explained that they'd received Robert's letter, that they'd done their own investigation, and that they needed to address the situation. Then he looked at Amy. "Ms. Rivera, would you like to speak?" Amy's hands were shaking as she stood up. She'd prepared something to say, but now all those words seemed to disappear. She took a breath. "I moved into my mom's house 6 years ago to take care of her when she got sick," Amy started. Her voice was quieter than she wanted it to be. "My mom lived in that house for 25 years. She loved this neighborhood. She loved the park view, she loved her garden, she loved being part of this community. She could feel tears starting but pushed through. When she died 2 months ago, I wanted to honor her memory. She always supported the children's hospital where I work. So I had a yard sale with some of her things, following every single rule to raise money for those kids." Amy looked around the room. "Instead, I've spent the last month being harassed. Daily violation notices for things like a dandelion or my trash can being out. Emails to the whole neighborhood suggesting I'm a criminal. A county complaint that accused me of running an illegal business, all because I had a yard sale." She finally looked at Patricia. "I didn't understand why someone would be so angry over something so small. But I found out it's because my mom bought the house Ms. Wells wanted 25 years ago. And apparently that's something she never forgave." The room was completely silent. "I'm not here to ruin anyone's life," Amy continued. "I'm here because this is my home. The home my mom loved. And I have a right to live here in peace without being targeted and harassed." She sat down, her heart pounding. Robert stood up next and went through the formal complaints, the pattern of harassment, the county hearing results, and Patricia's abuse of her position. He was calm and professional, laying out facts and documentation. When he finished, Frank looked at Patricia. "Ms. Wells, do you want to respond to any of this?" Patricia stood up slowly. Her face was red and her hands were clenched. "I have served this HOA for 5 years. I have worked tirelessly to maintain our property values and enforce our rules. Everything I've done has been for this community." "That doesn't answer the question," Frank said. "Did you file these complaints against Ms. Rivera in bad faith?" "I filed legitimate violations," Patricia said, her voice rising. "If she would just follow the rules like everyone else." "You filed 9 violations in 3 weeks," Frank interrupted. "For things like a garden hose and a doormat. That's not normal enforcement, Patricia. That's harassment. I was doing my job. Your job isn't to drive residents out of their homes," Frank said firmly. We've talked to other families you've targeted. 3 families moved away because of you. That's not acceptable. Patricia's composure finally cracked. You don't understand. That house, she pointed at Amy, that house was supposed to be mine. I found it first. I wanted it. And Rosa Rivera just swooped in with a higher bid and took it. The room erupted in murmurs. That was 25 years ago, Frank said, sounding shocked. Patricia, you can't seriously be holding a grudge for 25 years. It had the perfect view, Patricia said, and now she was crying. The perfect location. It was everything I wanted. And she took it. And then I had to watch her live in my house for 25 years. Watch her garden in my yard. Watch her sit on my porch. Amy felt a strange mix of anger and pity. This woman had been so consumed by something so old. And then she got sick. Patricia continued, her voice breaking. And I thought maybe finally the house would go on the market. But no, her daughter moved in. And then she died and the daughter stayed. It's not fair. It's not fair that I have to keep watching someone else live in the house that should have been mine. The silence in the room was heavy. Some people looked uncomfortable. Others looked angry. Frank spoke gently but firmly. Patricia, I'm sorry you've been unhappy, but that doesn't give you the right to treat people this way. You need to resign from the board. Effective immediately. You can't force me to resign, Patricia said. Actually, we can, said another board member, a woman named Carol. We've reviewed the bylaws. The board can remove an officer for misconduct, and this qualifies. Patricia looked around the room, maybe hoping someone would defend her. Nobody did. Fine, she said finally. I resign. But you're all making a mistake. Without me, this neighborhood will fall apart. She grabbed her things and walked toward the door. As she passed Amy's row, she stopped. For a moment, Amy thought Patricia might say something cruel, but instead Patricia just looked at her with exhausted, sad eyes. Your mother always seemed so happy, Patricia said quietly, living in that house. I hated her for it. Then she left. The meeting continued for a while longer. Frank apologized to Amy on behalf of the HOA. The board voted to void all of Patricia's violation notices against Amy from the past month. They also voted to review the HOA's complaint procedures to prevent future abuse. Several neighbors came up to Amy afterward to apologize for not speaking up sooner. Mrs. Johnson hugged her. Tom told her he was glad she'd fought back. Even people she barely knew expressed support. On the drive home, Amy felt drained. Is it really over? She asked Robert. It's over, he confirmed. Patricia's resigned. The violations are voided, and the board knows they have to do better. You won. But Amy didn't feel like she'd won anything. She just felt sad. Sad for Patricia, who'd spent 25 years being bitter about a house. Sad for her mom, who'd never known how much someone resented her. Sad for how much energy had been wasted on anger and resentment. That weekend, Amy did something she'd been putting off. She went through the last boxes of her mom's things that she'd stored in the garage. In one box, she found old photo albums. Pictures of her mom in the garden. Pictures of birthday parties in the backyard. Pictures of quiet evenings on the front porch. She also found a letter. It was addressed to Amy in her mom's handwriting. To be opened after I'm gone, it said on the envelope. With shaking hands, Amy opened it. My dearest Amy, it began. If you're reading this, I'm gone, and you're probably going through my things and feeling overwhelmed. I'm sorry for leaving you with such a mess. The letter went on with practical instructions about bills and paperwork, but then, near the end, her mom had written something that made Amy catch her breath. I want you to know that this house was always meant to be yours. I fought hard to buy it when you were little because I wanted to give you a real home, a place to grow up with stability and love. Whatever happens, don't let anyone make you feel like you don't belong there. It's your home. I'm so proud of the woman you've become. Stay strong, stay kind, and never let bitter people steal your joy. Love always, Mom. Amy cried for a long time, holding the letter. The next day, she went to the donation center where she'd taken the unsold items from the yard sale. She found her mom's favorite garden bench, the one she'd decided not to sell, and brought it home. She put it in the front yard, right where her mom used to sit in the evenings. She added a small plaque. In memory of Rosa Rivera, who taught me that home is where love lives. Over the next few weeks, things slowly returned to normal. The neighborhood email drama died down. Amy went back to focusing on her work at the hospital. She planted some new flowers in the garden, the kind her mom had loved. She heard through Tom that Patricia had put her house up for sale. Apparently, she was moving to a different state to be near her sister. Amy felt relieved but also a little sad. She hoped Patricia would find some peace wherever she went. One evening, Amy was sitting on her mom's bench watching the sunset when Mrs. Johnson walked by with her dog. "Beautiful evening," Mrs. Johnson said, stopping to chat. "It really is," Amy agreed. "Your mom would be proud of you, you know," Mrs. Johnson said. "The way you handled all that mess with Patricia. You stood up for yourself, but you weren't cruel about it. That takes real character." After Mrs. Johnson left, Amy sat there a while longer. She thought about her mom, about the house, about everything that had happened. She thought about Patricia's tears, about 25 years of misplaced anger, about how much energy people waste on resentment. Her mom had been right. Home wasn't just a building or a piece of property. It was the love and memories you built there, and nobody could take that away. Amy looked at the house, her house glowing in the evening light. The house her mom had fought for. The house that held every memory of her childhood. The house where she'd said goodbye to her mom. For the first time since her mom died, Amy felt at peace. She was home, and she was staying.